Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Outer Realm, the spin-off of the main show, The Outer Realm, which airs on Wednesday and Thursday evening. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM from beautiful New Orleans. Today, very excited. I know you guys. I'm a history nerd. You know, everybody knows it, right? And I love the research, and I love to. I'm always just looking for a really rich knowledge to share with you all. And I know a lot of people think, "Oh, Michelle, you know so much." Yeah, not really. I just happen to talk to really awesome people who know that much more. Anyway, today we're going to be welcoming Chrichton from the UK, and he's going to be discussing his research, which essentially is recovery of an ancient instrument and how it revealed or what it revealed about our forgotten past and so much more. So Crichton is a Scottish inventor, navigator, historian whose work bridges the ancient and modern worlds. Born in Glasgow in 1949, he holds 2 patents for the resurrected wheel cross and Latin cross astronomical navigational surveying instruments once lost to history. A Royal Yachting Association yacht master, former RAF ballistics expert, air traffic controller, architect, software inventor, and fellow of the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport, he has navigated both the seas and the skies with equal mastery. An authority on ancient metrics, geometry, Bronze Age routes, trade routes. He blends mathematics, astronomy, philosophy, metallurgy with a gift for decoding the wisdom in historical and religious texts. His 2001 book, The Golden Thread of Time, remains in print, inspiring readers worldwide. A Knight Grand Commander of the 1439 Order of the Fleur de Lys, he continues to champion the preservation of humanity's oldest knowledge systems. So without further ado, Crichton, hello, how are you? What haven't you done, Crichton?
Hi, Michelle. Thank
How
you
are
very
you?
much for inviting me on and to talk to your wonderful audience.
Oh,
Brilliant.
it's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to the education lesson. I think it's going to be wonderful. What can't you do? That's just as I'm reading through this, I'm like, my goodness, what a repertoire.
I'll ask my wife.
Does she want to come on? I love that. I love that. So, where does this journey begin? I mean, usually when an incredible journey, takes hold of someone, it's due to an experience of some sort. But this is a whole repertoire of and very technological journey that set on. Like, what made you just decide, oh yes, I just want to delve into this ancient forgotten stuff, which and bring it forth to the world?
Okay. The first thing is that when I was at the primary school in Scotland, it was just the primary school, but it was a small. Have I lost you?
You're coming in and out.
We're still here. So it was in a village called Roseneath, which means, again, what's the name? Well, it's underneath the rose line, Roseneath. That's what it means. Yes. And the rose line, of course, as you know, is a compass. Yeah. And it was the main route to Iona from across Scotland. And outside my primary school window on the Church of St. Modens, who was an ancient Irish teacher of Christianity who sailed, was a wheel cross on the top of the church. Wow. Now, at the same time, my tough old school back in the 1950s, the teachers made sure that I knew 2 very important mathematical things. And one was the 12 times table, which is anthropic, okay? And that's people count 10 in metric. Well, of course, the ancients counted 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And that's why there's 12 hours in the day and twice 24 hours in the day. So they taught me that. And they also taught me the Sumerian sexagesimal system, which sounds a bit rude, but actually it's base 60. And base 60, both of those things have more divisors than the metric system. There's only 10, 10 fingers. Yeah. And of course, that's how and this was created by Sumer 5,000 years ago. And we still use it today. We use it in geometry. We use it in timekeeping. The clock is Sumerian sexagesimal. And also we use it for surveying, and we use it for navigation at sea. So many years went by. I joined the Air Force. I was in air traffic control and so forth. But I also sailed, and I sailed single-handed often and with a crew in my own yacht and in the Mediterranean and the Atlantic coasts and so forth. And I thought to myself, knowing a little about the Bronze Age, I thought, how on earth could they navigate? So people think that we didn't start finding longitude until the 18th century when Harrison invented his chronometer. But I wasn't up for that. I wanted to find an instrument that could measure spherical geometry. That is, it could measure in this direction and this direction, and also this direction. And there is no such instrument like that. So I got a piece of wood and sighted it at the pole star, and it shook about. So I put it on a pole, on a staff, and sighted again. Then I thought, well, I need one of those. So I hung that pole. And using my GPS, I found my location using the pole star within 15 miles. And I thought, that's great. And then I took it and moved it sideways across the zodiac at night. And I found I could measure those angles as well. So I've got a modern model which might kind of help people see. So this is a modern model I made. So you can measure this way. And if you look, there's a plumb line weight. And then you've got sexagesimal systems here, and it will measure the angle. And then you measure it that way, and it measures that angle. But you can also measure angles this way. See? So it's reading it off. Look.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so next thing is you can do a thing called a pylorus. And a pylorus is a way of measuring the angles this way. And it's put on the lubber line of a boat. And in fact, pylorus's name comes from Hannibal's navigator when he crossed the Alps and attacked.
Interesting. Yes. Yeah. Okay. There you're back. Okay. You just cut out for a moment.
Of course, they were Phoenicians. And so, okay, I'm back. You're back. Okay, so I researched everywhere to see, because what I was holding in my hand was the Celtic cross and the solar cross and the sun cross.
Ooh.
They're also in England as well.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
And so I researched every academic paper that I could find, every book. There was nothing. So because I thought it wanted to be saved for posterity, I took it into the local patent office agent and applied for 2 patents. And within 2 years it came back. So I got approved patents. Well, of course, that's stronger evidence than even a peer group review. Now, of course, I wasn't an academic. I was a commercial. I was logistics and transport. And of course, what I was investigating is logistics and transport in the Bronze Age. And I found out how to find longitude and latitude using the stars. And then, of course, it went from Polaris. Then you have to find out we've got, I've got a globe here. I might show you that the Earth wobbles 1 degree every 72 years. So there was no pole star before the 14th century. And people don't realize this. The last pole star that showed you the true position of the celestial pole of the Earth was when before they built pyramids, around 2800 BC, which was Thuban in Draconis. And I noticed behind you, you've got what looks like a serpent eating its own tail, which is the Draconis constellation. Okay. So that became, so that became the basis of the clock. And the first clock in the 14th century was made in, the first 24 the first 24-hour astronomical clock was made in Padua in Italy, and that was after the Crusades. The last Crusades. So they recovered this knowledge from after many cyclical falls, like the Roman Empire fell, the Greeks fell. Before that was the Bronze Age collapse. They found this during the Crusades. And that's what kind of built, I guess, Europe. But if you go back a bit, then you find the Antikythera mechanism. So if you look at the center of the Antikythera mechanism, you see a wheel cross. Well, of course it would be. Now, they think the Antikythera mechanism was an observation thing, first computer. Well, actually, it was an automated almanac for seafaring. So you could predict in advance the position of the moon against the constellation years ahead with the Antikythera mechanism. Isn't that interesting?
It's fascinating because people have been playing with that.
Sure. And the biggest problem is the Darwinian mindset that we're actually improving. So it's all growth, and therefore they were not smart. Well, actually, they were smarter because they did it with less. You know, the wheel of stars around the Earth, and then the wheel of stars around the North Pole, in which your Draconis, your serpent eating its own tail. And that's the point. And even today, you can go out and you realize that underneath the head of Draconis is the North Pole of the sun. And it never moves, probably 1.5 degrees over thousands of years. Whereas our celestial pole, the North Pole of the Earth, moves all the time. So they could navigate with that and keep the time. And if you look at your analog, that's a model of the Earth looking down on it. And the hour hand is tracking the sun. As the Earth spins this way, then the sun stays still and the hour hand follows it. So isn't that fun?
Everything we take for granted, we don't realize how far back it actually goes.
Yeah, well, an academic said to me the other day, well, most people just use things. Yeah, so they do. I do. We're using something somebody else made now. But the point about it is the foundation of our civilization, which was 6,000 years ago. So
and the ancients, basically, our ancestors left us clues.
Yeah.
Right.
So here's what I did is I made the wheel. Now it's really important. I don't know how many. I'm sure that a lot of your listeners know that the first wheel was invented by the Sumerians, and it was also a pottery wheel, but it was also a cart wheel. And so I made one not in the Sumerian times, but based on 2002. So here it is. Okay, now if you look, it's got the zodiac signs all the way around.
Yes.
and the months. So you've got the months and the days.
Wow.
Okay.
Yes.
So as the year progresses, is at 1 degree every day, you got a particle. What I did next is I hung it on a frame. And you've got to see this in every church, and that's where it's kept alive for people to remember. They don't, of course.
Wow. No,
So
they
here's
never
all
have
the
any
symbols. Okay, there's the sun in the middle. You've got the infinity symbol. No, you've got Fleur de Lys, and it's got holes through it so you can see. Okay, and that's the same thing we've got here with the zodiac and the days of the week. This is calibrated to 2002. This is when I made it. Okay.
Wow.
And of course, the wheel spins. Now, what's important is weighted at the bottom, and it's hexadecimal, 5,000-year-old numbers. And then, of course, it's balanced so you can measure the angle. Do you like that?
So all these Celtic crosses that we see are essentially based on an instrument.
Yeah,
wow.
but it's spiritual as well as practical. So I'm not going away from it. You see, the problem is we in our modern scientific age have become materialistic.
Yeah.
And so we've then separated spirituality from practical application. These people sailed the oceans 1400 BC, looking for tin, and they were looking for copper to make bronze. And if you look at they find tin from Cornwall off the coast of Israel, which is the Levant. Okay, the Bronze Age started with the Egyptians in 3300 BC, but they made it with arsenic at first. And what they had to do is they found it was easier to mix it 10% tin. Are you still there? Can you still see me? I'm buffering. Oh,
yeah,
great.
Yeah, I just put a picture up for you.
So,
yeah.
I made
up here.
that one. Yeah, so I mean, this is actually what the Roman Catholic Church called keys to heaven. Because, okay, and it's on their coat of arms. And the point about it is I used bronze, but it's actually gold for the sun, silver for the moon. And you'll see that on the coat of arms. So they're telling you, as the coat of arms, they're telling you what the cross is. But it takes you, if you've been brainwashed out of it, you won't see it. It's just a pretty sign. So what? Means nothing. And I tell you, no, none of our ancestors ever made anything for no reason.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well,
okay.
I mean,
so back to
metals were precious. Yeah, everything had to have a use.
Absolutely. You didn't waste it. And so the point back, during the Bronze Age, they ran out of tin locally. So they were getting it from Afghanistan. And it started to spread. And the first place they shipped to was Iberia, which has got tin resources. When that ran out, they moved to North France. And then he ended up in Cornwall. But the other thing is, the tin went in both directions. So it went to Norway as well. It was just 2,500 years BC. It ended up in Cornwall, 70 years after the pyramids were built. The internet keeps switching us off. I wonder why. Yeah, sure.
No, I don't know. I just put the picture up. So I don't know.
Okay, so there's the wheel. So that's the wheel.
We have a delay. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, it appears that we have a bit of a delay, so we'll just have to work with that. So that's okay.
Okay. You can guide me.
Oh no, I'm just going to let you go. I'll keep up. Yeah.
Well, I'll just rattle on and go off sidelines and things. So anyway, the point about the Bronze Age was really important. So, but it started before that. So, funnily enough, I did my genetics, and they go back 5,000 years and earlier to the Beaker people, so the Beaker culture, and they sailed from Iberia, the coast of Spain, across the Bay of Biscay to Ireland and to Scotland and so forth. So they were already navigators back then before the Bronze Age even started in the north. But there was something else. They needed soapstone. Now, soapstone's a soft stone that you can make a mold out of to cast bronze. So that came from Norway and the north of Scotland, the islands off the north of Scotland. So they were shipping in all sorts of directions. And I cannot go over it because we get these archaeological programs, you know, where they say, oh, it's remarkable, isn't it? There were people living on Orkney. And yeah, and they had cattle. Well, you know, a cow's about half a ton. And you took half a dozen cattle from the mainland to an island, you had to have a decent ship. But here's the rub. They talk about, in the Orkneys, they talk about the Orkney vole. It's a little mouse, if you like. The only other place it comes from is Belgium and near North France. None of it in England, nowhere else. And it's on the Orkneys. And it's been there since prior to the Bronze Age in the Neolithic times. But they can't get their heads round that these people can sail and make boats. Recently, they've just discovered that a 6-ton stone was taken from the north of Scotland down to build part of Stonehenge.
Yes.
Right? And you know, did they tow it overland? Don't be silly. Of course they didn't. If they can move 6 half-ton cattle or 10 half-ton cattle on a boat, then they can take a 6-ton stone down to the south of England and up the River Avon. What's so difficult to understand about that? I don't get it.
Well, I don't think that people, you know, with all of our modern technology, it's hard to sometimes grasp that the ancients had developed all kinds of techniques to simplify, you know, building things. And they'll look at a cathedral, which could take, you know, several hundred years to build, and just think, oh, there's no way, must have been aliens. Well, okay, maybe.
Yeah, well, I have a little phrase. I have a little phrase for that. It's not their fault, number one, but number two, they're the aliens because they're alienated from their own ancestors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that's not their fault because power is knowledge. So at the end of the Bronze Age, when it collapsed in 1200 BC, there was nearly 1,000 years of a dark age. The reason was that the ordinary working people didn't read and write. So all the knowledge died with the elite, or the elite fled along the trade routes and spread out across the world and set up their own things. But they took the knowledge with them. Mm-hmm. And that's the terrible thing about knowledge being in the hands of a few in our time.
Well, that gets into a lot of need to know basis.
Well, yeah. I mean, I say to people, say, well, why don't we know about this? And I said, well, you know, walk into a university and ask them to show you their patents. Mm-hmm. They'll show you the door.
Yeah.
This is any commercial company, you know, working away on things that make money and it's commercial and they don't want you to know. So why would you expect to know about what the ancients did or how kings and queens and churches ran the country? How, you know, or got copper and tin? Do you think that the Phoenicians or the Minoans, you know, who ran those trade routes would tell people their secrets? That's crazy.
Absolutely not. No.
Yeah, but that's what happens is back to our AI stuff. Okay, it's about recursive icons that are set for your. We have a thing, you know, called the first law of thermodynamics, and the first law of thermodynamics is nothing is ever lost; it's only changed. That includes energy and material. It changes. Mm-hmm. But the second law is what they call the arrow of time, which is entropy. And of course, entropy is where order turns into disorder. And so that's what happens. for us in modern times. If we forget the foundations of the nature of time and cause and effect, then we're kind of in a risk of doing the same things that they did at the end of the Bronze Age. I mean, let's face it, when it all went wrong in the Bronze Age and there was global climate change and the people were starving, and in the north it was pouring with rain and they had no crops, they would go to the wealthy countries. When they got to the wealthy countries, they found that they hadn't got any food, so they burnt the place down. What changes?
Yes. Yes, yes.
The knowledge was lost. And the point is, the Greeks and the Alexandrians, Egypt was the only place that survived, but it was greatly weakened. But the Alexandrians and the Greeks, classical age, they learned so much from the Egyptians, but they didn't learn it all. But they were able to build magnificent things like the Antikythera mechanism is a prime example. Well, when Greece collapsed and the Romans took over, they were slightly less intelligent, so they never knew what the Antikythera mechanism was in the first place, or they wouldn't have been walking around with ropes between their legs to measure a mile, would they?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
And what you're talking about is cyclical rise and fall, but you're also talking about a deterioration. So we had our Renaissance in the Middle Ages, and it was a Judeo-Christian combination, and we had our Renaissance, and we built our science out of that, and we're where we are today. But we don't realize, not everybody, that's not fair, that the numbers and the metrology and the systems that built things that we have today came from 5,000 years ago during the Bronze Age, and that's collapsed. So out of that, of course, what happened then is this instrument was made religious. Well, then they had to invent something else, didn't they? So the first thing they invented was the astrolabe. Well, of course, there's a wheel cross, as you can see.
Yes. Yeah.
But you actually hold it this way up, but they don't realize that. And then you can sight the angles. If you look closely, I think I get it the right way around, you'll see, hang on, the Sumerian degrees on it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
See the degrees? Okay. So, so that's the astrolabe. And then they built, which is a prime example, they built the quadrant. Now, if you look at this where my fingers are, that's actually got holes in it for sighting. Do you see?
Yeah, I see those.
All right.
Yes.
So it's the same principle. And what you do is you measure the angle of a star, and somebody else, or you pin it with your finger, or somebody else reads off the degrees.
Yes.
So you find your latitude, you can't find your longitude with that. So it's a deteriorated instrument in that sense. And then, of course, in the 18th century, we invented the sextant. And the sextant means means the 60th part of a circle. So
yes, there it is.
You know,
yes. So do you feel realistically with, technology such as what's been reinvented, moving, modern times?
I think I've run out of steam.
Do you think we think that we're going ahead and progressing with the technology, but do you feel that maybe because it's forgotten that we're really going backwards? Because I mean, it's almost like we're just catching up again.
No, I think we're going ahead.
Yeah. Because it's like we're just kind of catching up to what was invented 5,000 years ago. You know what I mean? Like it just seems that we should be further ahead.
It's recovery. Sure. So no, I don't think so. I think it's recovery, and people are very slowly starting to realize that their ancestors left them icons, recursive memory icons, you would call it in AI engineering. So what your ancient ancestors realized was that what we call entropy now really is chaos. In other words, if you don't build something massive like a pyramid, then you're going to lose your memory. Your stuff. Look, I remember LPs and discs, and then it became tapes, and then it became video discs. The point is, I've got tapes I can't play because we've moved on. Okay, so what I'm really saying is it's fragile. Now, your ancestors, when they built things like Stonehenge or the circles in America, the stone circles, the medicine wheel, and even things like the pyramids at Giza and the pyramids in different places, like in Mexico, are designed to outlast entropy. If you look at the pyramids of Giza, it's 5,000 years old. It's got no writing in it, but it tells you the time of day if you know what you're looking at. It gives you the angle. It gives you the angles of the moon at certain times. It gives you how many minutes there are in a day. It gives you, and in two of my academic papers I've already written it. It gives the equatorial distance around the Earth, and also the polar circumference, which is different because the Earth is kind of wider.
Yes.
Middle. It gives that. If you know what you're looking at. If you don't know what you're looking at, it doesn't trigger your memory. You know, it doesn't trigger your ancestral memory, which, like color of my eyes and the shape of my body, comes from my ancestors. You know, and we actually remember things in our subconscious if we have to take the time and know how to sit down and be quiet, and then you'll remember, which is what I did. You know, I'm not very intelligent. It's so more a case of I remember things.
Right.
I remember.
So yeah, we're like I always say, we're a species with amnesia. It's almost like you tap into it and things will come back. Do you think that, as you mentioned, the great, you know, even like the Library of Alexandria, for instance, so I think a lot got, you know, burned down for sure. I mean, it happens. It's the way it is. I mean, thousands of years pass. But there's also an ancient library in Tibet. There's one that's allegedly in Romania. Do you think that we will find more technology if some of this stuff can be transcribed or even made public?
Well, yeah, I've made public how they navigated, kept time, did the calendars, how they used the zodiac from Sumeria to Babylonia. What I don't know, and a lot of people are covering this at the moment on YouTube, experts and engineers, is how on earth they made the drill holes. You know, how they made those amazing diorite stones. I saw that years ago in the museum in Paris. And I looked at a highly polished diorite statue of a pharaoh, and I went, well, that's impossible. We can't do that.
See?
So there's more to be uncovered by different specialists, and you really need to pay attention. The biggest problem, and I keep saying it, is if you think in Darwinian thought, and even I mean, you've got to remember, it's still a theory. It's called the theory of evolution, rather than adaptation. And I believe more in adaptation. We adapt, and but because they think that, and politically they think there's always a continuous growth, but that's not true. I'm very concerned about the children at the moment. One is, I showed you, that's a model of the Earth, and the hour hand points at the sun, an analog clock or an analog watch. In school now, they're not teaching that. So they're teaching how to use digital.
Everything's digital.
Well, if we get a major solar flare, or God help us, a war or something like that, and digital's knocked out, those kids aren't going to know how to keep time.
Most kids can't
Mad.
even tie shoelaces. It's just Velcro. It's life's basic.
Go a slip on. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I
Probably
still
should
like
have-
my old fashioned. Yeah,
This is a properly
time
tied tie. This is
That's
not
right.
a slip on.
Oh, you need to take courses for tie tying nowadays. So, so you know, what some
But
people take for granted, some people would be just like, "Oh, hey, I want in on that."
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the point about it really is that what you're talking about, and back to the basis of it, is the solar cross hanging in every church is not recognized even by the pastors who are standing in front of it telling the story about time and about reincarnation and all the spiritual things that our ancestor believed in, right? They're standing behind it and they don't know that's how their ancestors found it out.
Mm-hmm.
When you measure time by the zodiac, if you go out on Christmas, I tell everybody, I challenge you now, go out at midnight on the 25th of December, right? And look at the sky south of you at midnight, and you'll see Orion standing there. Massive constellation, if you live in the Northern Hemisphere.
Mm-hmm.
If you live in the Southern Hemisphere, he's upside down, but and it's summer. But the point about it is that most people don't know. They don't look. And and if you look at Orion standing there, you might think, well, what's the summer solstice then? If you were to use your brain, all right. The summer solstice, you can't see Orion, can you? But the sun is in his right hand right now. It won't happen again for another 25,920 years till that moment happens. Okay.
Wow.
But you don't know. So, I mean, I've been at Stonehenge, Woodhenge, talking and so forth with groups of people, I would say. So, what constellation is the sun in? They don't know. But the ancients knew because they looked at midnight and they looked for the opposite sign, you know? Yeah. The opposite sign.
Yes.
So what's at midnight? At noon the next day is the opposite sign. That's how they did it. It's simple. But anybody that thinks there's a flat earth, well, they wouldn't agree, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, I'm mischievous. I can't help it. But
no, I know. You are welcome to come on anytime and talk about it.
So I made a special globe. You've all seen these at school, all right? So it's tilted. All the globes are tilted 23.4 degrees. But what they don't do is do what I did and mount it on this so that it would carve the precession of the equinox. It's 25,920 years. If you divide that by 12, you've got 12 ages of 2,160 years. And that's how it works. So what happens is this points at the North Pole of the Earth, the celestial. Well, it carves its way through the stars. So the last pole star before Polaris was in the Dragon constellation Thuban, or Alpha Draconis 1, if you want to be technical. Right.
Well, see, people have the internet now.
So that moved on and there wasn't any pole star. Not until roughly around the 40s.
You're cutting out a lot. Oh.
Yeah, I'm back. Okay, so there you are, folks.
There we
Simple
go.
globe. And it spins and it orbits and it, and it does that. Okay, so there you are. I thought I'd show that here.
That's great.
Your seasons and your food. Your food and your crops. Yeah, your seasons, your food, your crops, everything you get from McDonald's or a decent store or whatever, you know, everything that you eat relies on that. the seasons. It's the fundamental connection between us and the stars and the sun.
Well, our
And that's really
ancestors were
important.
very versed in
So it's in,
astrology and astronomy, you know, that they followed
yeah,
the
well,
stars. They were very versed.
astrology, well, it's really important because if we talk about astrology, which means astrologic, which is mathematics of the stars, we have to remember that when we were building the British Empire and the French were competing with us, right, they changed the zodiac to tropical. And tropical is fixed, okay? Whereas if you go out, as I said, on Christmas Eve and have a look at the sky, you'll see that it's moving. And if you think, for instance, people think, if I say I was born on the 25th of August, 1949, oh, you're a Virgo. No, not in real time. The sun in real time, sidereal astrology, the sun was in Leo. So I'm a Leo, as it happens. Now, you might think, oh, why is that? Why do they call astrology, the scientists call it, and the astronomers call it a pseudoscience? Well, the reason is because they're not observing. And the reason is it's knocked 30 degrees off course so that the competition couldn't navigate like we could. That's the point. And if you really want to check it out, buy a nautical almanac, and it will give you the real positions. Even now, if you go sailing, you need a nautical almanac, not an ephemeris that's built on 30 degrees out of sync. And that's the point I was telling you about protectionism. So you can't see it because it was protected. And so now you live with what you've been given. Okay? That's all right.
Which is inaccurate, just like, you know, changing our, you know, like our musical tone, for example.
Yes.
That was changed as well. Yes,
it was. I play the guitar very badly. But yeah. So you know, I would have died if I'd played it well. I'd have been dead of drugs and rock and roll years ago. But I find it a lot of fun to be able to see how our ancestors seriously thought. And one of the things that they thought was really important was how they saw time. They saw time as cyclical. They did not see it as a line from the beginning of your birth till the end of your life on somewhere you're along it. They saw it as really you being in the center of an axis, looking at the changes as they happen around you. That's consciousness. That's something AI doesn't have.
True.
They're marvelous creatures, human beings. Marvelous. Their ability, but when you even think like your eyes, okay, so we're on about that. Here, there's two things I want to show you. One is if you hold your little finger out at arm's length and hold it up to the moon, 2 moons will fit inside one finger. Perfect. Doesn't matter how tall you are. Doesn't matter whether you're a child. The ratio is absolutely perfect between us and the cosmos. Isn't that wonderful?
That's very interesting.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's really, and the other thing is your eyes. And you know, I wear glasses, as you can see. I didn't used to. But the degrees, okay, between the center of your eye here and here. And if you look, it's a perspective. As it goes out, you know, if you take your finger and hold it at one eye and close one and close the other, then it gives the angles of things that are far away and things that are close. Isn't it funny? A lot of people they go through their whole lives and don't know that, living inside that, behind their eyes.
But you're not educated to know that. I was never taught that at school, and I'm old too.
Well, the point is, it's about education's difficult. Education is about you've got to fit into society, quite rightly, and You've got to pay your taxes, and you've got to pay profits to the people that are making the thing. And so therefore you've got to prove that stuff. How do you teach people philosophy in a primary school? Or teach them philosophy in a secondary school, as we call it here? And what do they teach them at universities? But the other thing is, our first scientists were polymaths. They were schooled in all sorts of stuff, kind of like I am, because I'm interested and I'm trying to find things out. But what happens is they go through school, then they start to find, what do you want to do? And then they take the talent, they go to university, and then they disappear down a rabbit hole. They don't have this share. Do you see?
Yes.
And that's very difficult, because we depend on teamwork. Otherwise, your society crumbles if you're not working as a team.
And I also feel that I agree with what you were saying, that if you don't know what you're looking for, there's many of these ancient structures, there's all kinds of symbolism everywhere, just like some of them are instruments. But most people, for example, look at the Celtic cross and look at it as ornamental. They do not see, how would they know that it was an instrument? Technically speaking, you were not taught that.
Well, here's a prime example for you. Do you remember doing pi at school? So Euler created pi, so they tell you. And it's the ratio between the diameter and the circumference. And it's 3.14195 constant after that. Right. So they teach the children at school and later on to remember that 3.14195 constant as the ratio of a diameter to the circumference. Okay. Now, everybody drives cars. The point is, it's pi that gives you your distance. So they invented the wheel. Let's do it that way, right? Okay. That's pi. That's pi. So pi, Euler, he took this symbol. I'm back. Right. So they took this symbol and he used the Greek sign for perimeter. And so now people are completely detached from, if you put this on the ground and the distance from there to there is a foot, it'll go 3.14195 as a ratio of distance. So 5,000 years ago, when they built Stonehenge, which is just one of these, then they wonder how they actually got the size of the circle. Well, it's quite obvious, isn't it? Because if you study Stonehenge, you know about the Amesbury Archer. Well, he came from the Alps, and the Alps is where they found the Ludwig wheel, which is the oldest wheel in the world we've found. And if you've got a wheel on a cart, you only have to count how many times it rotates, and done it all before. It's nothing new. But a lot of people claim this. Okay, so they claim it. Well, I'm going to make myself famous, right? I've looked at Teth in the Bible in the alphabet, which means house of God, and I see the number 9, and it's a cross, a wheel cross. You know, that's a number 9 letter. Teth in Phoenician, Semitic Phoenician, right? You know, that they look at Teth, and Teth is number 9, and it's also a letter in the early Hebrew alphabet, or in the Semitic Phoenician alphabet, and it's pi. It's also telling you, because I think Brian Peller, and he found the letter A. Okay, so he saw that the letter A, right, that we use is in the Phoenician alphabet. It's called Aleph, which is, people use the alphabet, they don't know it means the house of God. in ancient times, okay? Because Aleph, right, is Taurus. It's the horns of Taurus on the right-hand side of Orion.
Yes.
Should you happen to look out on Christmas night, and you'll see Taurus hanging in the sky, and that's Aleph, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And Bet, right, alphabet, Brian Peller's genius, because what he did is he flipped the letters through 90 degrees, and he found that those letters match the zodiac. And there you are with, in the middle, Teth. Teth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
you make it sound so simple.
Unless you think smarter than I do my best, because you know you can turn it into modern algebra if you want, but then it means nothing. It's a specialist language invented by these Muslims, you know, and
yes,
it becomes a language. Whereas the point about why I ended up with two patents is because it's a practical application.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point. Mm-hmm. Because and if you want to follow science, so just for your audience, the principle of science is that you have a theory, then you make a model, then you prove it with the model. So for 23 years now, since my book went out, I've never had a challenge from science. You wouldn't, would you?
Wow, congratulations.
I demonstrated it at Cambridge University in 2006, yes. In the King's College. And, you know, no challenge, because it works. You can't argue with something that works, can you?
No, I mean, if you can have your peers, you know, support you, that just gives even more, you know, credibility, right? Even though you know it works, well, you always got that guy who usually likes to get in there and just try to debunk everything.
So. Doesn't do any good, because well, you think the reason you don't get debunked when you actually make a working model that is demonstrable, and you get, and don't forget that the British Patent Office is royal, you know, our Queen, bless her, she's gone now, but you know, I got permission from the British Patents Office.
Yes, no, exactly.
Which used to be called Royal Assent. So, wow. So, you know, argue that then. Yeah, that's right. Come on.
That's right. That's right.
And you know, when you talk about printing in academic papers, and I should say to your audience, I've had 35,000 downloads from 110 universities and 49 countries in the world on my academics.
Wow. That's incredible.
I never get challenged. Why would I get challenged? You know, it works. So that's crazy. You would embarrass yourself to challenge it.
Yes, I think that's wonderful.
There's no academic.
You're clearly well researched. You know,
well, sorry, go on.
No. I was going to ask.
I interrupted you.
Yeah. That's okay. We have a delay, so I'm this is kind of going back and forth. I want to ask. I mean, we were talking earlier about the Pyramid of Giza, and we're talking about the different systems in measurement. Why do you think everything changed to the metric system from what our ancient people used to use?
No, I'll tell you why. It was the war between Britain and France. So,
okay. Of course.
So, yeah. So they were competing, and Britain was trading with India. And so what happened around the French Revolution was that Napoleon invaded Egypt, and the route for trading with India before the canal was to cross the top part of Egypt. So he went down with his savants, as they call them, at the same time as the French Revolution. And he brought all his scientists with him, and he measured the pyramid. Now, the important thing, as you'll see in some of my academic papers, is that the the pyramid is measured in feet, not metric. Now, no European will manage this, because if you went to school in America and you're a little bit more mature, you went to school in Scotland or England, you were taught feet and inches. So it's 481 feet high, confirmed by everybody. And that's really important. So if you multiply 481 feet by the angle, which is also confirmed, of 51.8, gives you the circumference of the Earth at the equator in statute miles. So we still have statute miles. Try it. You've got a calculator there. Just do it. 481 times 51, 51 point. Yeah. I multiply it, and it's, do you know how much it's out? 14 miles. 14 miles.
Incredible.
2,570 years ago. Before, sorry, BC. Yeah, 4,570 years ago. But it also does a polar circumference. So back to Napoleon. So what Napoleon did is he got his scientists to convert that into metric. You've got to remember, the British Empire was, the sun never shone on it in those days. And France was competing.
Oh,
well, you ended up with all sorts of battle. I'm back. And they were battling. And so it was all about trade and skills. And so what happened is when they changed it, it stuck. So for instance, the French Revolution tried desperately to get the people to accept the meter for measuring time. It lasted 2 years, I think, or 3 years, and the people rejected it. So they still use the sexagesimal system, the base 60. Why? For those mathematicians amongst you, it's about divisors. If you use 10, you've only got 2 and 5. If you use 12, you've got 6 divisors. And I can't remember how many there is in base 60 off the top of my head. I don't get it wrong in front of you. So we still have to use it. That's what we use for geometry. And we use it for surveying, and we use it for navigating at sea, and we use it, more importantly, for keeping time.
I know even a lot of the Commonwealth countries, Canada being one of the British Commonwealth countries, we were inches. We didn't go. We were changed, I think, back in the 70s or 80s to metric.
Yeah.
Tell me that messed us all up in high school. It's like, what?
Yeah, absolutely. But it didn't. It was okay because we kept distance in England, and they do in the States. But they kept distance, but we changed everything else. So into into liters and so forth. Well, it's really tricky, you know. You get what's a gallon? I think it's 4 point something liters.
Oh, I know. I know. I just thought to myself, what are these shenanigans? This is crazy. You know, you've just been so your whole life you're used to a certain way, and then all of a sudden it just changes. But you know, you start getting into that, and like you had made a statement at one point on one of your social media pages, like the metric system's rigid standardization disrupted the transmission of encoded ancestral knowledge. So meaning moving forward, anybody who is like, you know, pretty much brought up on the metric system, you know, they're never going to be able to figure any of this stuff out. Like a small Crichton who went in and started taking interest, and you were able to get all of this information through interest. You know, and these next generations are not going to be like young Crichton. They're going to be like, it's metric, so they're not going to be able to find this stuff.
That's right. And I discuss that with people from Europe all the time, Lisbon, Spain, France, and so forth. And they've been brought up in metric. In Holland too, I have Holland people I speak to in Holland, and they can't get their heads around it easily. And so the prime example, for instance, is during the Crusades, it was King David I. Now, I know people get upset about the Crusades, but nevertheless, it happened. And
Yes.
King David I introduced the foot and the inch into Scotland. And the foot, for anybody who knows this, is the distance between your wrist bone and your inner elbow. That's a foot. And it's actually the same length as your foot, no matter what size you are. That's how they tell. Right. And then he measured the inch as being the width of, he took 3 men, small man, medium man, large man, and said the average of the width across your thumb at the thumbnail, the base of the thumbnail. Well, funnily enough, I'm exactly an inch if I put it on an inch ruler. That doesn't work in metric. Even that basic fundamental doesn't work in metric. And of course, what they did is they called it King David I's L wand. And it was, if I remember rightly, it was 18 inches it ended up, 180 it was split into, and then Queen Elizabeth I took over, became 36. And you can see her, she holds it in the picture, she's holding the measure of feet and inches in her hand because she's a ruler. And that's the important thing. She's a ruler like you had at school. Measures time, measures cause and effect, decisions based on generations of being taught how to rule and how to think. And they don't think like us, or think like us. Queen Elizabeth I didn't think like we do.
No.
Generally, if you see what I mean.
Well, would have been made privy to actual ancient knowledge, being part of an elite family, right? The elite held the knowledge because they could read.
Oh, it's passed down. A lot of the knowledge was, a lot of the knowledge was kept in Freemasonry after the Knights Templar were excommunicated and ended up in Scotland and Portugal. And you know, the thing about that is it went underground, became Freemasonry, but a lot of it was lost in the First and Second World Wars, because normally it was the eldest son who would keep the knowledge, and the youngest son would go and have to make his fortune, usually as a knight or whatever, and battling. But in the First World Wars, the eldest sons became officers in the trenches in the front. So the order I'm a member of, the Fleur de Lys, there was only 6 left.
Wow.
All the rest were killed. Funnily enough, my grandfather survived, and he was responsible. He was Royal Scots, which was the oldest British regiment. Funnily enough, formed out of the Fleur de Lys, and he put the monument to the Royal Scots in. It's an honour, really, from a family's point of view. In St Giles Cathedral on the High Street in Edinburgh, and the Queen laid in state there, bless her.
Wow, very nice.
Yeah,
very nice.
and that was it's the First World War Royal Scots thing that he designed. So lost knowledge. It's a shame, isn't it?
It very much is. Carrie here in chat is saying, so is metric inaccurate?
No, it's accurate, but it's just different.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Look, a good example would be to say, to your readers, let's measure the Earth with this pen. And everybody agrees that that's what the measure is. Right, so that's fine. Now you've got a new measure. In old England, they used the barleycorn. so many barleycorns, you know. Okay, so you can measure anything you want in any kind of metric as long as you're all agreed on it. And that's about trade, and it's about commerce, because you have to. If I weigh something right now, for instance, this ball here is an exact match of The stone ball in the Dixon relics in the Pyramid of Giza is 1 pound 3 ounces.
Mm-hmm.
So if I say there's a weight that's 1 pound 3 ounces and it's this size, girth, and of that material, you can now trade because it's the same. You're not cheating.
Mm-hmm.
If you agree that the foot is how you're going to measure a field, or the yard, or say, for instance, the rood or the rod, which is, I don't know if folks know this, but Holy Rood in Scotland, the prime, is called after this. It's the Holy Rood, is the sacred measuring stick, and it's a measure. Rood, R-O-O-D, comes from rod. A rod comes from reed, which is how they measured things because they were segmented. So back to your person who asked, it can be whatever you want it to be, but you all have to agree on it. Otherwise, you start cheating each other by under selling stuff underweight or whatever. It's all about trade.
Yes. Yes.
Does that help? Right. So now it's the meter and the liter. It's the meter and the liter. But if you use the meter and the liter, you won't understand when you look at the old icons that people made 5,000 years ago. You won't understand what they were trying to transmit with their mathematics.
Right. So
does that make sense?
Okay. Sure. I mean, yes, it does. I think what it is when it comes to mathematics, I always say, like, it would be so much simpler if the whole world would just do one thing. You go into different countries and it's just like, you've got, well, okay, this is in metric or kilometers, or, this is in a mile. Then I get into the United States and I'm right away trying to make the conversion on my speedometer so I don't get pulled over. It's like, God, what's 90 kilometers? Oh God, okay, it's 55. Okay. It's just trying to just, it just makes life so much more difficult than it has to be. But it's still easier for me to do that than to work in measurement sort of thing. So when you say, maybe you can explain to everybody when it comes to archaeological amnesia.
That from a scientific point of view, you've got to support the archaeologists in the sense that if they don't have an artifact, then they can't say scientifically that it is a fact.
Yeah.
That's it, really. So their hands are very much tied by their own discipline. So whereas we can have circumstantial evidence, archaeologists can't. So that prime example is the thing I talked about earlier, is how did they get that 6-ton stone from Scotland down to Stonehenge? Well, it's obvious to everybody else that the only way to get it there is on the water and float it in a boat. But they can't find boats because boats of those times rotted. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
So boat they rotted. A prime example would be the curragh. The Irish curragh is made of a very thin wood, like a basket, and it's laid over with animal skins, which are then treated. Well, if that's not going to last 5,000 years. That's not going to last 10. And so you don't find the evidence. That's the point. But still going back to that, they can't. The archaeologists have problems in other areas. So if you take, for instance, King Khufu's so-called ceremonial ship. I'm at the time navigator, I sail. I know how the engineering of yachts and boats work, which is really probably our oldest science. How to make a boat work in such a way that the keel works and the sails push. And then they've got a 72-foot boat in a boat pit, and they call it ceremonial, but it's got bows that sweep up. So it's got bows. You don't need bows on a river. You need bows to break waves.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
And I think there's about 4 other ships just around that area. And I think I can't remember exactly. I think there's about 40 have been found in Egypt. But then you then tie that together with that they were making bronze, and in the end they were taking copper from Cyprus, which is out of the sight of land, you know, and then they were taking tin from Cornwall in the end, you know.
Yes.
The Illuminate shipwreck is a beauty for that, because the Illuminate shipwreck's got precisely, I think it's precisely the ratio of 10% tin and to 90% copper on board, but it has something else. It's got amber, and amber comes from the coasts of Denmark and around that way, you know.
Yes. No, yeah. So how do we?
So I hope you all find.
No, you talk about reconnecting the threads to restore recursive memory. So how do you do that? How do we bring these people of today who obviously, you know, miss out on all of this through education or just not knowing? And again, it's a technology, the digital world, so on and so forth. AI, which doesn't have, like, it cannot imprint that. It just doesn't have consciousness. It doesn't understand. So how do you recommend these people get back to, I guess,
that's
the basics?
A very good question. So if you go researching on AI can only give you what human beings have fed into it. It doesn't think for itself. So if, for instance, the latest laws of physics, if they're still basing it on classical physics instead of quantum, then it's going to give you what human beings have fed into it. And you've got to remember that a lot of theories are about consensus. So it goes into a peer review and it's checked by X amount of the peers, and then they say, yeah, that theory is right. I agree with that. That's basically it.
Right.
So it's not able to think outside the box in that sense. It's also got controls in it. So it doesn't go off piste, and, you know, it doesn't offend anybody and all of that sort of stuff. So it's got in. So if you ask it something, no, let me go back to the thing. What you have to do is feed into AI alternatives, and hopefully that it starts to get a point of being able to work out right and wrong based on balance of probability. I think that's probably the right way to say it. So it actually becomes more intelligent. Otherwise, the children that are going to be taught by it, because they're going to remove the teachers, and AI is going to teach children probably at home, you know, and all the children are ever going to learn is what AI has had fed into it by people who could be wrong.
Correct.
I think a prime example of that at the moment is physics, where they're finding that this new telescope in space is finding out that there are systems anyway, beyond the point that they say time began. Wow, that's physics out of the way. We've got to start again. And so, you know what I'm saying? So how does that work? So
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
I mean, it can only teach you what it's been taught.
AI, if the world goes, yeah, that's really what I'm saying. And if it's in error, they'll believe it, and that's that dealt with. But they won't necessarily think outside the box and challenge the view, because AI said so. Some people already think AI is superior. It's a fantastic research tool. There's no doubt about that. And you're not scared of it or not, it's the quickest typist I've ever had.
Yeah.
Which is quite good for me. I was struggle these days with my eyes.
Yeah. I struggle with it. I like spending time on pages like academia. Is what I actually like to do.
Well,
a lot of. Yeah.
Let's go back. Let's go
Yeah.
back to the thrust of your question, really.
Yes.
And so AI is troubled with drift. So a prime example of drift would be the invention of the watch. So the moment that longitude was solved, nobody then researched, apart from me, how longitude could be achieved without a watch.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't actually got into that, but it is in my book to a degree. And
Yes.
And that has to do with that serpent sitting behind you, because the watch comes from that, the Draconis constellation going round 1 degree a day, or slightly less than, to make 365, and 15 degrees an hour. And that's what that is. That's what it is. And when you detach that and go onto digital, you've lost that connection between your Ouroboros and the zodiac and the watch.
Yes.
So I found out how to use Ouroboros to find midnight, and once I'd found midnight, I could then use the moon against the constellations, because the moon goes backward. For anybody that looks at the sky, if you look at it, it goes 13 degrees every 24 hours backwards. So now you can make an ephemeris. And with the ephemeris, you say, at this prime meridian, Stonehenge or the Pyramid of Giza or even modern Greenwich, right, you go, the degree, I'm sorry about that. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I'll get rid of it. There. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay.
Anyway, so where I was, right, you make an ephemeris, and at your prime meridian, you say it on such and such a night at midnight, which you have to find, okay, the angle is 2 degrees. So when you're at sea and you want to know how far away you are from the prime meridian, you measure at local midnight. But to find local midnight, you have to look at your Ouroboros, the position of the ecliptic pole of the sun. Okay, so there you are, you've got it, and you're 3 degrees. Well, that's 60 nautical miles.
Yes. See,
so,
and somebody who's versed in that.
You are.
Yeah, it's like a no-brainer. I mean, once you're aware, and that's the key.
Yeah.
Is like somebody's very persistent. So
he's very keen to speak to me. I'm sorry about that. I should put it on flight mode so we don't get into that.
That's okay. We're almost done. So
I am going to put it on flight mode.
I've included in the show description for people to go and read it, The Cross and the Forgotten Cubit, which why is the British statute foot in the Pyramid of Khufu, right? Which is an example of recursive memory.
Did you enjoy that?
I did enjoy it. It's very informative, and it's something that I never would have known. You know, I've been there, and you don't think of things like that. You just don't, and yet the whole thing is based on. But I'm not gonna get you every which way. So you say, guys, I've got 10 minutes, people. So I have put that in there.
Can't speak now. I'm on the phone. I'm in a conversation. So where were we? So the foot. Well, we actually spoke about that, didn't we? Because I think we mentioned the foot earlier. The real.
Yes, we did. We did.
Okay?
Yes.
It's the Hebrew word for foot, and it means it's called the ulnar cubit. No, here from the bone, okay, to the inner there, it's the same length as your foot.
Yes.
And so anthropic measurements were sacred because they were a connection to the cosmos.
Yes.
and that was really important. Whereas the meter isn't so sacred, but that's all right.
Yes.
Horses for courses.
That's right.
Now,
That's
so,
okay.
so yeah, okay. So it was called the Rigel, but it was not translated from the Hebrew books, the Old Testament, pre-Christian Old Testament, around 900 BC. It wasn't translated into the cubit we understand. So they called it the Rigel, which means foot. And of course, that's exactly the same as our statute foot. So that's a terrible loss, isn't it?
It is. It is. And it shows you how far back it goes.
So when you take the foot, when you take the, call it the ulnar cubit, if you make you more comfortable. There's 481 of them in the height of the pyramid when the peak was still on it. And multiply that by the angle of slope, 51.8, and you've got the circumference of the Earth. So, but not everybody knows that the pyramid is Khufu's got 8 faces. And what's the symbology of 8 faces? Well, I don't know if your audience know how many minutes there are in a day, or a day and a night. Is that interesting?
I can assure you I do not.
1,000. Well, why would you? You know, an hour is an hour and so forth, but there's 1,440 minutes in a day, or a day and a night. One rotation of the Earth takes 1,440 minutes. And is that shown in the pyramid? Yes, it is, because it's got 8 faces. And 8 times 180 degrees, because everybody remembers the school triangles, 180 degrees, 8 times that's 1,440. So it tells you the time of the day. How come the Egyptologists don't know that?
Well, yeah, you would think that they would if they've studied that carefully. I mean, the 8 sides to me, I've always found fascinating. But I mean, you know, we know that the whole secret of life in the universe is all mathematics, technically.
The point is that written language, and we talked about the alphabet earlier on. So written language is something that came along later. In fact, I know and have a dyslexic child, and I know other people that are dyslexic. And the beauty of it is that you always boost them up, because Einstein was dyslexic. Don't like them being put down. And the reason for that is our ancestors spoke in image. They didn't speak in linear words. So majority of people think in words, whereas people who think in spatially, in geometry, they think in image. And an image makes 1,000 words. So if you look at the Great Pyramid of Khufu, you won't find any words. They expect you mathematically to unravel it for yourself. The language is in the angles and the geometry and the mathematics. That's the language that they passed on to us, their descendants.
Hence your sacred geometry, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's sacred. Of course it is.
Yes.
So is your hand. Anybody that don't think they're a miracle, or your eyes, you know? I mean, without them, what are you? You know, the Holy Grail, the only place that God lives.
Yes. I'm going to put up a copy of your book. And if you could tell people where to find it and where they can find you. Here we go. So, The Golden Thread of Time. Where can people buy this book? How long has this been? This has been, what, 20 years, 2 decades? You've had this out?
Amazon is, it keeps selling. You know, I think it mostly goes by word of mouth. But I know a signed copy once of the first edition. That's the first edition on there. There's a second edition, because what happened was we sold out of all the thousands that were printed. And then, of course, Amazon started doing print on demand. So we redesigned it in 2014, put it back out again. So it's on print on demand now, but it's also been re-edited. The first edition fetches ridiculous amounts of money. It's particularly a signed copy. I think some chap in Texas bought it off Amazon for $6,000 a signed copy.
Wow.
I just got the cover price. But,
wow.
you know, I know. And that's really important because I didn't write it for the wealthy. I wrote it for people, just people like me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I want this to be shared because I'm here for. I've actually outstripped it because I don't know if you know that, you know, the average life is 1 degree of the precession of the equinoxes, 1 degree every 72 years. So I'm outliving it at the moment. So I wanted to pass it on so that it's in people's bookshelves. It's not about making money, it's about passing on knowledge. And I actually start that at the beginning of the book. It's called a gift, El Regalio. And also I'm a sovereign soul. That means sovereign means I'm free thinking. I'm not controlled by schools or universities or religion.
Yes.
The word religion means to be tied again. It's Latin. Religere. It means to be tied again or bound. Okay. And you can't afford to be bound. Otherwise, the old saying we used to have in marketing was died at 20, buried at 70.
Ah. There we go. So,
brain stopped working.
Yes. No, true. So this book, essentially, it is a gift of ancient knowledge. And it is,
and yes, the foundation of it, Michelle. It's the foundation. If you go into it, because everybody that's seen this now cannot work into a church and see the cross hanging on the wall in the same light, but it's much deeper than that. It's much more spiritual than you might think when you think it through. Christ on the cross is actually a meaning, you know, there's nothing back there. The first law of thermodynamics tells you there's no time behind you. Therefore, where are you? Where are your loved ones? Where's Christ? Where's Buddha? Where's anybody? You know, just changed, not back there. And if you spend your life complaining about how you're mistreated as a youth and that stops you getting on in life, well, think again, because loads of us have a hard time. But at the end of the day, what happened doesn't exist. It's only in your memory. And to be fair, if we didn't have a memory, okay, then we wouldn't function, because we function through our memory, all the things we've learned and so forth, and we take the positive out of it. But what do we do going forward? That's the really important thing. And as I said earlier in the conversation, think of time as you being right in the middle here, watching changes. You're inside your head watching the changes. That's time. The future hasn't happened yet. The past doesn't exist. Proven. It's really interesting because in all the religions, the ancient religions, tells you about reincarnation. Okay, because they knew this already, and then they go and prove it with the making of the steam engine with the first and second laws of thermodynamics. The problem with science is they talk about the arrow of time, that eventually the universe is going to turn into complete entropy. But they forget the antidote to entropy is human beings who make order, and life that makes order. It takes entropy and it turns it into order. And you do that, you build a house, you do that when you make a shirt, or you do that when you're growing plants. You're creating order out of entropy. That's defeat, and that's spiritual.
Yes, it is. It is. It's been a very fascinating conversation, as I knew it would be very fascinating to spend this time with you today, and learned so much. We've all learned so much. And now, of course, I'm going to be, we're going to look at things so differently. Because when I see a Celtic cross, I'm going to know it's not just an idol or, a piece of art or, a gravestone, for instance, that there is something that's very productive about it. It was an ancient instrument that sort of got buried, like so many other artifacts and symbols and tools, that only a certain group of people would have been allowed to know the significance.
Yes. And my parents passed away, they're buried in a churchyard over a loch, looking at the mountains of Scotland, which is where they both came from. And on the wheel cross that I put on top of their grave, I put "Forever Spring."
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
So if somebody sees a wheel cross somewhere in a stone, because the earth, I believe eventually secrets become uncovered. Who would have, inscripted a wheel cross into a stone, for example, maybe in the New World, in your opinion?
And they're all over the New World. Wonderful Indian medicine wheels. I love them because they're exactly the same thing. And
yes.
In my book, I write about the Ohio mounds, I think, and the Serpent Mound. And also, of course, I met the leader of the Mayan Indians, and Don Alejandro, who's dead now. He spoke at the Kinet and the United Nations, praying that the world would turn to considering nature. He's passed away now. And when I spoke to him and I showed him, I made a special one, I made one as a spiral that would open out because I wanted to put it on an aeroplane. Didn't know what I was doing. I put it in a fishing bag and so it would carry in the hold of the airplane. So it folded out and became a cross. So you have a plumb line from the top and then the measurements across the bottom like that. And demonstrated it to him and his entourage. And I spent a week with him. It was quite interesting, getting their view. And he said, "Oh," he says, "Oh, the man with a purpose." It's a glyph, apparently, that they have, the Mayan Indians. And I didn't know that. And of course, I'd got a spiral on it, which is important to them. And the middle of it was held together with a gold knob on the kitchen door, which they saw as a sun. And holding it together at the top, I bought off my daughter's dinghy. I bought a multicolored rope to hide it together, string. And of course, the rainbow feathered serpent, all of that was in it, and I had no idea. So,
wow. It just shows you what they saw in it.
Yeah, I know. And so, well, that's what they saw. Yeah, absolutely. And what he said, that is our staff of power that was taken away from us by the conquistador that built the pyramids. And it was the symbol of your Christ science that they murdered him on.
Wow.
That's what they said. That's what he said. This powerful, powerful man. I mean, make no mistake about it, he was the leader of 6 million Mayans. And he was the only one allowed to hold a sun ceremony at I can't pronounce it. Anyway, the Pyramid of the Sun in Mexico. And when he called the ceremony, all the Indian chiefs from Tierra del Fuego to Alaska attended. So for him to say that to me was just knocked me off. This is 1998, just knocked me sideways. And so there I was performing something that meant something to them. But when he mentioned what your Christ was crucified, he was murdered on the symbol of his science. He said that. I didn't say that.
Wow, that's
so I apologize to him for it. That's what he said, and I've written it in my book, so people can read that if they want. Yeah, it's pretty profound. Isn't it?
It is. It is. It really is. Thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Have we run out of time now?
We have, yes. Well, we went over, and that's okay. That's okay. I'm glad that we did. Where can people find you? How can people find you if they want to? Obviously they can get the book on Amazon.
You can get the book on Amazon, The Golden Thread of Time. And, oh, there was something else, actually.
Okay.
There's a video. Can you see that? The Prophet Thoth.
There it is. Yep. There it is.
So that's me doing a long interview some years ago, Prophet Thoth.
Okay.
And then, of course, there's the book, The Golden Thread of Time.
There it is.
Okay. And it's on Amazon. The best place is Amazon, really. And it's the new edition. Don't get the old one. It'll cost you too much money. And then the back, it tells you Lost in the Thread of Time and the Power of Magicians.
Wow. Phenomenal.
I promise you, if you read that, and in the back of it, you've got how to make one. All the patent.
Oh, look at that. Yeah.
So everything's there. How to use the zodiac. Everything you want.
Yeah.
The Dixon relics that I took from 1872 and built into a cross that gives you the measurements within 3 arc minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's all there to be found. I wish we could have got through. Yeah. There it is. Yeah. I love that.
Field work. Yeah. Testing out in Scotland. So it works. Make up your own minds. But always remember, when you go into a church and you see one, think twice.
Now you know what it really is. Well, everybody's got to change to one of these. Look, I've got one too, right there.
Remember, it's a model of the earth looking down on it.
Well, yeah, and you know what? I believe that we're supposed to be connected to our planet and to all the stars, and our ancient people and ancestors were. And over time, the powers that be have just found a way to unknowingly or maybe knowingly disconnect us, through frequency and through things like this, even as simple as a watch, by going digital and taking away the mechanics of it. So I like to stay connected, and now I know that this is also another way.
You've got to remember, Michelle, when we look at a democracy, okay, where the people have the power, as opposed to rulers and bloodlines having the power, or dictators, they need to know, because there's nobody to lead them but themselves.
And that is a perfect way to close off the show. And I will leave that right there for final comments. And to everyone else who have been in chat and everyone out there listening, thank you all so very much. Tomorrow night, everybody on The Outer Realm, we welcome back Marilyn Hughes, and she's going to discuss mystical theology, astral projection, divine union, out-of-body experiences, and so much more. Thursday night, of course, Rowan Bowe joins me all the way from Australia to talk about her latest book, The Travelers, an experiencer's guide to extraterrestrial disclosure, which we know is very big right now out there. So thank you all. Thank you to Crichton. Thank you to United Public Radio, 105.3 FM and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Yes.